Today is September 26, 2023. My name is Charles Suter. Today I'm presenting part 3 of my series, Mind versus Brain, with a focus on reframing. My main message: your response to the world depends upon how you interpret and reframe it. The purpose of this presentation series is to teach you how to end a single episode of emotional distress quickly by following a 4-step process: relabel, reframe, refocus, revalue, and a 5th step, reprogram, if you want to eliminate the source of a problem forever. Now, reframing is so important to the success of the process that I'm spending an extra session discussing how to ensure you achieve a proper reframing or final understanding of what caused your emotional upsetness. As a recap to my first 2 presentations on mind versus brain, here are some of the highlights. The brain and the mind serve different but overlapping functions. The brain is not a free agent. It just can't do what it wants. The brain has physical components similar to a computer's hardware and software. The software of the brain is the gray matter contained within the skull, and the software is a vast array of neurological networks or coding instructions that tell the brain body how to respond to reality. Now, mental health professionals call these errant software programs irrational beliefs. Besides ensuring your survival, the brain protects the status quo, existing behavior, routines, and habits, and also it's a repository of all your knowledge. Now, the mind has the power of awareness and ability to break from the rigid limits of the brain's software. Only the mind is capable of unbounded thinking because it's more ephemeral and not limited by restrictive software programs. When errant software programs trigger the brain to respond irrationally with emotional distress, the mind's best strategy for regaining control and restoring order is just passively observing without responding to the triggering event. Now, here's an important physiological phenomenon. An observed emotion tends to dissipate by itself. Anyway, this is step 1, relabeling your feelings when under emotional distress. Now, as the mind continues to observe and the emotions ebb spontaneously, the mind will begin exploring the causes of the emotional distress by labeling the observed emotions, such as, I feel anger, worried, fear. As the exploration continues and the emotions ebb further, just due to the observations by the mind will relabel the feelings into less intense and emotional descriptions, such as, I feel peeved, concerned, nervous. This is step 2, reframing the cause of your emotional distress. Proposition 1, again, this is somewhat of a recap. You interpret reality according to the brain's software coding. Every emotional upsetness and your thoughts are the product of faulty software coding. You have to apply the mind to find and fix these software errors, and to do so whenever you're emotionally distressed. Now, just remember, a problem can't be solved until the root cause is identified, and this is part of the job of reframing. The brain is a first responder to any event or circumstances in the outer world. The brain can only respond by following its existing software coding of its programs that have been previously developed over your lifetime. In most circumstances, the brain handles its response to the outer world sufficiently well to meet its fundamental needs. But sometimes its software programs fail to do so properly, and dysfunctional and non-supportive emotions and behaviors ensue. When events are overwhelming to the brain, the mind can be activated to come to its rescue. But first, the mind must wrestle control away from the brain because the brain is actively carrying out its pre-programmed software instructions. To regain control, the mind passively observes and explores the brain's initial interpretations of adversity. After observing for a while, The mind has enough information to begin relabeling the emotions it has observed, and then relabels them again as the emotions shift to lower intensity. So in step 1, relabeling one emotions reinforces the naturally ebbing of emotional intensity that occurs as emotions are observed by the mind, who is observing without reacting. Relabeling is step 1 of a 4-step process for rapid relief to emotional distress. Proposition 2. Observing and relabeling leads to exploring for the root causes. You explore for root causes by asking a series of why questions. You do this 5 times, asking why to each answer to the previous why, and you'll eventually end up close to the root cause of the problem. With each why answer, you perceive and reframe reality differently. Now, exploration is complete when you find the root cause, which ultimately is the errant software coding, or what the mental health professionals call irrational beliefs. Just by observing and relabeling, the mind de-escalates the intensity of emotional upsetness to the point where it can begin exploring for causes by asking neutral questions. Why am I upset? Or why did that, insert the answer from your last why question, why did that upset you? By exploring the thoughts and emotions spewing from the brain, the mind can search for the real cause of an emotional episode. By asking a series of why or what about that questions, the mind seeks to find the root cause so the mind can pick the best intervention or course of action. For each answer to your why question, formulate a new explanation as to the cause of your emotional distress. Reframing is step 2 of the 4-step process for rapid relief of emotional distress, and it's critical to find the root cause of the emotional episode during the reframing exercise to ensure that attention is paid to the right root cause, or else intervention is likely to be unsuccessful. Proposition 3. Eventually, as you observe and you relabel and you reframe, your interpretations are going to shift from the outer world to your inner world. Because once you get to your inner world, you'll find that you don't have to focus on fixing or changing your circumstances in your outer world because it may be impossible or hard to do. Changing or fixing your inner world, that is your errant software programs, is rather easy. With insights as to the root causes, the mind can decide the best interventions. Now, there is likely to be unfinished business in the outer world, and you need to finish it, but to get rapid relief from emotional distress, you need to focus on your inner world. Your mind's exploration will eventually shift to outer world sources. Here's a helpful tip to ensure your exploration is moving in the right direction. Unless there is a physical threat, all emotional episodes are ultimately caused by errant software coding. In other words, your emotional episodes are caused by your irrational beliefs, which can be easily fixed. For most people, this is hard to accept because it's so tempting to blame the outer world, people, places, and things for one's unhappiness. Now, here's a practical example of applying the why questioning. Why am I upset? Well, the answer may be, I got upset because someone offended and disrespected me. Why did that upset you? Because I want to be respected by others. Now, why is being respected by others so important? I want to be accepted and regarded as someone important. Why is it important? Why is it important for you to feel important? I want to be valued and validated by others who think I'm good enough to be one of them. And why is it important to be one of them? Well, I am not certain that I'm even good enough to be one of them. And why do you feel you're not good enough? Well, I'm just afraid that I'm not good enough. Now we start to repeat the answers to previous why questions, but at least you've entered a point where you know that the inner cause, the errant software, is that you have a feeling that you're not good enough. The conclusion of these questions, or root cause, is the errant coding that you're not okay, and you want to be good enough. Now that this person knows that his root cause is an irrational belief that he might not be good enough, this is where the brain software code needs to be repaired. A key to completing the third and final step, or next step, is refocusing. And that's knowing that the root causes to the initial emotional upsetness. And once you can pinpoint that, you can begin to effect repairs. Now, my final message. Reframing adversity closer to root causes makes problems easier to fix. When you experience an emotional upheaval, you must apply the highest conscious power the mind has to regain control. The first step is simple, just observe. The second step, to reframe and relabel. They're fairly easy. But you do this by asking why questions. After you know the root cause, the next step is revaluing, which is reminding yourself what's important. What are the needs, values, and ends that are truly important to you in this situation? Now, what's not important is to mindlessly repeat errant software instructions and continue to get emotionally upset. Once the irrational beliefs causing your emotional stress are identified, you can then focus on fixing them. Now stay tuned for the next presentation on revaluing. That's all for now. Remember to stay positive. You'll be happier, healthier, and live longer.